Hola, all right. Hello, welcome. Here we are. Today's date's 13th of March here in New Zealand. It's 9 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, normal time for doing Chat with Matt. Apologies for missing last week. I think I missed the week before as well. I think I've been absent for 2 weeks in a row. Just the way the retreat works. Even though it was only a 5-day retreat, I think I missed two Chat with Matts. It was quite hectic from our side, my side, in a good way. It was good hectic, but I was definitely very busy, running around doing various things, and not at all thinking about my social media presence, which is good in many ways. It's good to have a break from these things. Routine's great, change is awesome. Matter of finding a balance between the two and allowing our routine to be spontaneously broken up without creating issue for us is a good way to be in the world. Anywho's, here I am. I was just flicking on to this post I put on yesterday with me hugging a big old Rimu tree, probably about 500, maybe 600 years old, maybe even a bit older, 700. There are some easily 1,000-year-old Rimu trees in that forest that we walk through. There, walking out of Port Williams back towards Lee Bay on Stewart Island. Beautiful presence. That was a beautiful bit of forest, to be honest. And I love a good forest. Hey, Sister Mary Louise. So anyway, but the point is, no one put any comments on, or questions or requests. So I am free to talk about whatever's going on. What is going on? It was also this weekend, or early this weekend, I think it was about 10:30 p.m. Saturday. It was the new moon. And I didn't look at anything, so I've got no idea what the astrology was saying. I was feeling pretty wiped out, I have to say, but I was also coming off the back of a very hectic 10 days, getting ready for and hosting a retreat and then packing up afterwards. So I'm not sure what it was like for everyone else. Hey, Susie. Hey, Jill. So anyways, here we are, open to talk about whatever you guys might be interested in. Where are we going forwards from here, energetically? Not sure. I've been feeling a little bit wiped out after the retreat, even, quote unquote, could be labelled as depression. Also feeling quite a lot of anxiety, which is interesting as well. Not that I've got anything really to be anxious about or depressed about for that matter. Everything's pretty good, but that doesn't change what I'm feeling. I guess that's a good place to start. How do we differentiate what we're feeling from who we're choosing to be? A lot of people, we've been conditioned to believe really in our society that we are being what we're feeling. So if you ask someone, how are you? They basically tell you how they're feeling. Sometimes they tell you what they're thinking. But very rarely do they say what they're choosing to be in the world. I was talking to Anna, our cook, our chef. Really, I can't really call her a cook. She's a full-blown chef, a published author multiple times. And the food was amazing. It was one of the best parts of the retreat. There are many highlights of the retreat, but the food was pretty freaking awesome. Even if I was spending a lot of time in the kitchen, having to help out because cooking for 25 odd people in that particular kitchen was a bit of a handful for her, as we found out. And so I found myself in there from time to time doing a couple of loads of dishes off the bench and cleaning up, etc. Just to add to running a pretty much consistent taxi service throughout the retreat too, which is something we're changing for next year, so that I don't have to be so busy, or we don't have to be so busy, because if I'm really busy, then Marie by default is really busy because I'm not doing other things and she's doing those. Jill said, had a mega few days last week for a birthday, all caught up with fearsome strong winds and mega manifesting and support happening. Awesome. Good. It's a good conglomeration there, it looks like. And we had some pretty intense weather in Stewart Island. Not that it stopped us, but it was intense for a moment or three. Yeah, it's interesting that you're pairing and we're noticing that Earth and the weather, etc., has been intense and chaotic, as many of us have been feeling. Susie said, I have been listening to the week's astrology, and Librans are meant to have an epiphany by the end of the week. Well, if I haven't had an epiphany by the end of the week, I'll be not doing what I'm supposed to. That'll be bad. I wonder what my epiphany will be. Oh God, now you've got me thinking. God, the pressure of having to have an epiphany by the end of the week. Jill said I've spent weekend recovering, but this week am still needing afternoon siesta. Yeah, I think it's completely appropriate to have afternoon siestas. I don't personally, because I'm not sleeping that well at night to start with, without having an afternoon siesta as well. But that's just part and parcel of what's going on. What was I saying before? That's right. Differentiating what we're feeling, which may be a lot of what society's going through right now, and a lot of what we're processing for others, or processing for the earth, or even processing from our past lives. It doesn't really matter where it's coming from. A lot of people like this idea of, asking a question, does this belong to me? For me, that is a superfluous question, because what part of me am I identifying with when I ask that question? Because on the biggest, broadest scale of thing, everything belongs to me, because I'm everything, right? And I get it, but there's so many different delineations you can draw that line of where me begins and other starts, that does this belong to me just doesn't make any sense for me. And I've never really got any great reprieve from asking that question. Some people do. Some people seem to feel a lot better when they get an indication or an idea that what they're feeling doesn't belong to them, and therefore they don't need to put so much emphasis on it. I'm moving towards a state where it doesn't matter if it belongs to me or not. I don't need to put that much emphasis on what I'm feeling. That doesn't mean I'm denying what I'm feeling. It doesn't mean that I'm not appreciating what I'm feeling. It doesn't mean that I'm ignoring my feelings at all. It's just that I'm not identifying completely with my feelings, which is a big difference. And so in many ways, through this process, I'm coming into more peace with what I'm feeling, and actually being able to own what I'm feeling, and even tell others what I'm feeling, even though some of the feelings are quote unquote judgeable, feeling anxious or feeling depressed. Just particularly depression. Anxiety seems to be more acceptable than depression. Feeling depressed is a real downer for a lot of people to hear. And a lot of people make it wrong, and feel that if they're depressed, then they don't want to tell anyone else, because that will depress other people, and that would be quote unquote bad, which is terrible, because the last thing you need to do when you're feeling depression is to make yourself wrong for feeling depressed and then suppress the depression, right? Because it's already depression. The last thing you need to do is suppress it, because that makes it even more dense and more hidden and more influential in your life, right? It's amazing that when you can actually open up and talk about what you are feeling, then those feelings generally lose a bit of influence over you, because dense feelings are more influential when you feel they're wrong and you have to hide them from others. Then you're carrying an extra layer of density, which increases density, right? Yeah, exactly. Susie said, when I'm feeling like that, I just remind myself that it's a cycle and it will pass. Exactly. Everything comes to pass, and it's useful to remember that. Jill said also, by the way, high tides too, waves crashing over seawalls. Some poor cockles were dumped on the seawall, unable to return to the sea. Crazy way to go for them. Yeah, well, that's just part of the new moons and full moons. It tend to be times where we get spring tides, because the new moon, the moon and the sun are pulling together in their gravitational force. And interestingly, we still get high tides, extra high tides at full moon, when the moon and the sun are opposite. Earth's in the middle, right? Moon and the sun are opposite, and it creates a gravitational pull in both directions, which then creates a bulge in the middle or something. I'm trying to pull up my high school earth science, which is a pretty long time ago. But anyway, I do remember it's a very interesting way that full moons create higher than normal tides. Anyways, being aware, I think, is the key to moving through these times of intensity with what we are feeling. I don't think the intensity is going to go away in a hurry. I don't think we're all just going to find quote unquote peace by not being triggered. I think we're going to find peace when we learn to manage our triggers much more effectively. And part of that management is maintaining an empowered attitude towards it, being aware, and using techniques that work for us, which might be just taking a few breaths. It might be something more, going for a walk, having a shower, doing whatever, having a cup of tea. Have a nice cup of tea. Fixes a lot of things, a nice cup of tea. As does having a shower, or going for a walk in nature, or taking your shoes off and grounding, or listening to an MP3. Lots of different ways we can help ourselves through intensity without sort of contracting around the idea that we're fixing, I'm feeling really off, and then doing techniques to try and get rid of the off feeling. The techniques are to help us relax through the feelings and to accept the feelings, really, because then once you accept them, then they can pass. They can pass much more easily once we accept them. It was a super new moon, apparently. Yeah, so when it's super, it just means it's a little closer. It doesn't make that much sense for new moons because we can't actually see them. It's dark. It's right in front of the sun. But, the moon has a slightly elliptical orbit around the Earth. And so at certain times of the month, every month, it comes closer. It's called super when it comes closer, when it coincides with either the full moon or the new moon. And then we say it's a super new moon or a super full moon. But every 28 days, there's a period of 3 or 4 days where it's a little closer, and there's a period when it's a little further away. A minimum moon also, and we do have minimum new moons and minimum full moons when they're a little smaller. Which makes sense when we get eclipses, because sometimes we have that annular eclipse, which is when it's a smaller new moon, and you can see the ring of fire around the outside. And when it's a larger full moon, a super full moon, then we get that total eclipse where the sun is completely blocked out and the Earth goes very dark in the path of the eclipse. So that's how that effect happens. So this moon of ours is on an elliptical, not ecliptical, an elliptical orbit, only slightly, but it does make us a difference. Hey, our brother Gary, Jill said, I feel we need to grab rest when we're guided to do so. Exactly. Yeah, when you're guided to do so, which I am very rarely guided to do so during the day. So that's the point. You're not wrong for having a rest, and you're not wrong for not having a rest. It's horses for courses. I did do my hill walk yesterday, Susie, and not only did I do my hill walk yesterday, I did it for a freaking good time. 24:30 I got up my hill. Not nearly my record, but it's probably the best I've done at least in the last year, if not longer. Hasn't been that often that I've broken 25 minutes, but I did 24:30, which was good yesterday, and I was actually feeling quite good as I did it. My record's 23:15 for those of you who must know, but I haven't done that for quite a few years, and I don't know if I'll ever get back there. Who knows? Maybe I will. Maybe I will get fit again one day. But yes, I was surprised because I've obviously been 2 weeks away and then came back and went up the hill pretty quick. I felt so good about that when I got back, I went for another walk along the streets down to measure up at a friend's place to help them replace a roof. So yes, I have been out walking, and I have been going to the gym since I'm back. And I have been doing odd jobs around the house, and I've been keeping busy. But still, definitely very attuned to the energies that are around, which for me, post-retreat too, there's always a recovery period, and it's quite often to feel a bit low. but it was particularly harsh this time round. So yeah. But anyway, it's passing as it always does. Also, maybe another today. Maybe we will see what happens today. Yeah. Yeah. What else, my friends? What's going on for you guys? I've just been chit-chatting about my life and what I'm feeling. So yeah, differentiating between what we're feeling and what we're choosing to be. And that doesn't mean we... So the problem is most people, when they decide to be something, they expect their feelings to align with what they're being. And then they feel that they've got to fight their feelings like it's some sort of challenge, like you need to beat this off in order to become what you have chosen to become. Like you want to see evidence that you're succeeding, and that's just a no-win situation. And it's very human, right? Because we've been trained into this idea that you set a goal, then you achieve a goal, right? If I state to myself, you know, I'm choosing to be happy, and then you're having all of this depression or grief or frustration or guilt or whatever coming up inside you, you think you're failing to be happy, right? Because you've been sort of trained to believe that happiness is a state where you're in, you know, joyful feelings, feel light and expansive and abundant and all of the rest of it. That's a problem, because the truth is, for me, I'm achieving more and more capacity to be happy in myself despite what I'm feeling. So I can be feeling depressed and still be happy. I'm still being happy because I'm choosing to know that my feelings are just transitory. And quite often I recognize that what I'm feeling is not just what I'm releasing for myself, but what I'm processing for others. So I'm happy that I'm being purposeful, right, in feeling depressed or anxious or angry, right? I recognize that that's not a failure, that that's actually part of my purpose here on the planet, is to transmute these feelings. Not that we're trying to get rid of them. It's the energy that's important. The feelings are just my emotional response to the energy that's running through my field. That's pretty true of emotions, full stop, right? Emotions is energy in motion. We place it's a sensation or a connotation, really. We place a connotation on the frequency of the energy that we're feeling, which we call an emotion, right? And then we're trained to identify these emotions based on how we've been educated, right? This emotion is the emotion of guilt, right? You're feeling this way because you've done something bad, right? That's how we're trained. And then when you feel that same emotion arise in you again, then immediately you feel ashamed of yourself because you think you've done something bad, because you're feeling guilty. Because it's been triggered in you for whatever reason, or sadness or anger. Anger is really dangerous. You know, don't become angry, or you might say something without thinking, or do something that you regret, etc. And there's elements of truth to the potential dangers of allowing anger to consume you. But anger itself is a very normal, healthy emotion to feel, particularly when your needs aren't being met and you need to do something about it, right? Debbie said, I went to the Spirit Festival for the first time, did 10 2-hour workshops, got home Sunday night, healing crisis hit on Monday. Wasn't expecting it. Wow, you weren't expecting it after doing 10 2-hour workshops? Not that I'm laughing at you, but body feels sore. I'm congested, feel like my body is forcing me to rest. I've been sleeping so much. Not much energy to do much. That's me. Yeah, awesome, Deb. To be expected, right? And that doesn't mean you've made a mistake by doing so many workshops, but definitely have to, quote unquote, pay the price for choosing to churn up that much stuff to release, right? That's the issue. If we want to go fast, then we usually feel that. And there's nothing wrong with going fast, as long as we don't tip ourselves right off the edge, and as long as we have the capacity to rest afterwards. But yeah, 10 2-hour workshops, well done you. And yeah, it's going to take a little while to recover from that. And when I mean recover is a stupid word, because it sounds like we're going back to where we were. It's not like that. It's like you just need to process all that you've churned up. And I wasn't expecting it because I was feeling so good before. Yeah, well, even just the feeling of feeling good can be enough to churn up a release. I notice that in myself. Whenever I'm, feeling good, feeling on top, feeling like I'm achieving in the world, right? Feeling that I'm confident in myself, I tend to trigger a release. I think it's a natural thing. When our vibration goes high enough, we basically shake loose the shit that's holding us back, right? And so then that shit is now more present in our field. It was once secreted, once hidden, now gets shaken out because our energy gets so high that it can't stay hidden. And then we have to process the releasing of it, which then draws our energy back down, and we feel like we've gone backwards. Haven't really gone backwards, we're still going forwards. It's just the natural process of going forward is a squiggly line, not a straight line, because every time we go higher than we've been before, or relatively high to how we've been recently, we trigger more stuff to come out of our field. If we can become accepting of that process, you don't necessarily need to expect it. No one wants to expect that they're going to feel shit in a few hours because you're feeling so good now. That's a bit of a downer. But at least when the density arises, we don't freak out and feel that we've done something wrong or gone backwards or feel ripped off or ashamed of ourselves, etc., etc. We just go, oh yeah, okay, I've triggered some stuff to release, and we take some breaths and we find space for ourselves, and we continue to live our lives despite the fact that we're feeling density. And continuing to live our life might need to be resting more than normal because we don't seem to have the energy to do something, or it might be, being kinder to ourselves or whatever it is. But sometimes, it requires us to go to bed, and sometimes we can move through it in less extreme ways, right? It just means that, well, having a couple of extra showers a day, or stop and do a bit more breathing or whatever, right? But the idea is not to feel resentful that we're releasing heavy energies, because that's what we're here to do, release heavy energies, whether we're doing it for ourselves or doing it for others. The point is, it doesn't have to be detrimental in our life. It doesn't have to rob us of being happy, which is where I was talking about before. How can we be happy when we're feeling dense energies, right? And it's just a matter of maintaining a mentality around that, where we let go of the program that happiness is supposed to be feeling really jovial and really upbeat, as opposed to, that's feeling happy, I guess, as opposed to being happy, which is more of a sense of contentment and acceptance with what life is providing at the moment, the experience that you're having, so that I'm happy, I'm content in the experience of releasing density, and I'm no longer making myself wrong or feeling ripped off or trying to fix it. I'm not trying to fix it from the idea that feeling the density is wrong. I can be choosing to do things that support me through the experience so that I'm not feeling so restricted or limited by the dense feelings that I'm feeling, right? Because quite often when we're feeling dense feelings and we get tired, we lose our motivation. It doesn't have to be that way. I think with a little bit of training, with a little bit of mental training and physical training, we can learn to breathe our way through feeling this density without allowing it to sap all of our energy out, at least most of the time. And therefore we can still be relatively motivated to do what we know in our heart is important for us, even though we're feeling a little bit depressed or feeling a little bit angry or feeling very guilty, right? I just wanted to let go of the feeling a little bit thing, right? Whatever we're feeling, we recognize that it's just our feelings and it doesn't have to stop us. Jill said, I was feeling emotional on Sunday, as here in the UK it was Mothering Sunday, so heaps of big family get-togethers, all walking on the usually empty beaches. But for me, it was also anniversary of my mum's passing, and as I don't have any children, it was a bit triggering. Yeah, I get that. In the end, I sat for ages, just people watching and sun gazing. I had a delicious ice cream. Maybe that's why I'm shattered now, as it was a biggie for me to face and release. Yeah, and that's awesome, right? That's part of the process of becoming more empowered, more authentically confident as a being on the planet. is when we allow ourselves to have these big feelings, right? To face these feelings that are not pleasant, and to allow ourselves to be with them and realize that they're not going to destroy us, even though they're quote unquote big, and that it's okay. It's okay to feel them, and it's okay to be moved by them. I think it's important to recognize that I'm not talking about becoming immune to our feelings where we don't experience them. I think we can experience feelings fully. I think even as we progress, we learn to experience our feelings even more fully than we ever have, but we just don't become them. So it's because we lose it, because when we recognize that we're not our feelings, we don't get so scared by them, especially when they're intense, whether they're intense joy or intense sadness or grief or anger or frustration or guilt or shame, or pick one, right? As we recognize that we are more expansive than our feelings, we can allow ourselves to feel the feelings more intensely, more fully, more intimately, really, because we're not as worried about being consumed by them, because we recognize that that won't happen. And that then allows us to enjoy our feelings, even if they're dense ones, more fully, right? We enjoy what they give. We're here on this planet to feel things, right? That's part of the appeal of this place, is that it gives us opportunity to have a very polar experience where there's hot and there's cold and there's happiness and there's sadness, right? It's a roller coaster here. And people go on roller coasters because they enjoy the thrill. You've come to Earth because it's like a roller coaster and you enjoy the thrill. Your soul's enjoying the thrill of being here and feeling things so intensely, so immensely. That's why you're here. But the truth is, you can enjoy a roller coaster much more when you remember it's just a ride and you are not white knuckling in fear that you're going to die, right? Because when you're in that state and you've initiated a stress response, you're not really enjoying the roller coaster, right? You're not. You chose to go on because other people enjoy it, and then you've gone on and you've got lost in the ride, thinking that it's real and that you're not going to survive the loop-de-loop. And you did survive the loop-de-loop. That's the point. So the next time you go on the roller coaster, it's easier to relax your grip. And eventually your hands are in the air and you're not hanging on at all and you're screaming in joy rather than screaming in fear. Life's like that. Earth's like that, right? It's a good analogy. It's a simple analogy. It's not a complete analogy, of course, but it's a one that can help us get a fundamental understanding that the more that we can recognize that this Earth experience is just a ride and it will end, and we won't lose ourselves in the ending of the ride. When we get off the roller coaster, we're still a person. When we get off Earth, we're still a being with thoughts and personality and feelings, right? Just not the vehicle to experience them as intensely as we're experiencing them here on this planet with this body. Right, so I can't remember where this is going. The point is to allow ourselves to feel our feelings and to enjoy feeling our feelings. That's what we've come here to do, and not make it wrong that we're feeling sad or depressed or angry, and at the same time not to think that we're going to stay in depression or fear or anger or guilt or whatever forever. There's a point it will change, and the more that we can relax around what we're feeling, generally the faster it changes, or the more easily we go through the process of changing, and our emotions pendule around, right, from happiness to sadness. That's normal part of the process, and we don't need to stop that. But if we can become a little bit aware that they're just feelings, they're still feelings, and they're still important and they're still awesome, but they are just feelings, they're not the totality of us, then we can ride the ride without losing ourselves to it. We can let go of some stress around what we're feeling and therefore experience the emotions far more intimately, really, if we're not in stress. Not only that, we can share them with other people without feeling wrong, and we can open ourselves up to them feeling their feelings with us as a safe space, right? We now become less judgmental about feelings, less in the ideology that we're going to fix the feelings. Oh, you're feeling sad? Let me cheer you up. Nothing wrong with cheering someone up, but are we doing it because feeling sad is wrong, or are we doing it out of a loving embrace of the experience, right? And people naturally feel cheered up when they are held in a safe space and they're allowed to express themselves without feeling judged, right? As opposed to let's push these feelings away and distract you with something else, as in cheer up, which is what we've been trained to do. We've seen it since childhood. Kid falls over, let's distract them. That works, right? Now they're no longer crying because they've hurt their knee. They've been distracted from the sensation of the pain, and now they're back into life. We can see how that works, but that's not a recipe for doing all feelings. Oh, let's just distract ourselves and move on. Sometimes it's important that because in many ways that diminishes the sensation, and therefore it builds up a level of frustration that it's not being received. And so these things come back and come back and come back. These internal fears, these internal not good enoughs, these residues from the past, these strong, dense emotions that haunt us because we're not willing to face them. We're not willing to embrace them. We're not willing to accept them for what they are. Therefore, they have a lot of power over us because we don't want them to get too strong. So we keep distracting ourselves, keep suppressing, and it makes us ill, right? Our bodies aren't designed to keep that much emotion suppressed in them, right? We have to store it in the tissues of our body, which then creates discordance, which then creates illness, which then creates other problems, right? Of our body's health failing because we're not willing to just accept that we are emotional beings and we're supposed to be emotional beings. This feeling the energy as it's in motion through our field is what's important. And when we try and hold that energy still, static, by suppressing it and secreting it in ourselves, it's no longer an emotion because it has no motion to it. And it becomes an anchor, really, and a rather insidious anchor at that. So there's my 2 cents there. You got that. It's probably done my half hour, to be honest. Let me have a look at the time. You can't stop me. I'm going to have a look at the time. Exactly, 9:35. Okay, my friends, I think that'll do. Hopefully I didn't miss anything putting out. Thanks, Susie. I'm glad you felt that was a beautiful expression. Yeah, I think I did miss this from Susie. I've been feeling waves of intense energy a couple of times. I have awoken in the night feeling a strong energy. My body feels like an electrical current is going through me. Yeah, I think that's pretty common, Susie. Just try and breathe your way through that in acceptance. No worries, Mary Louise and Deb. Yeah, I think that's pretty common, Susie and everyone, that we're having some pretty interesting, intense sensations physically. And our sleep cycles particularly might be being disturbed by what's going on. For me, a lot of dream processing, as well as feeling discomfort, tingles up the spine, kind of itchiness right in the base, all sorts of restless legs, twitching with energy. This is happening a lot for me, probably funny time for it to just drop out. But yeah, energy is intense, and our physical bodies are in a transitory stage of becoming more and more able to process this level, to transmit this level of energy through ourselves. And so various forms of discomfort and unusual sensations is pretty common. Don't freak out. Breathe, relax, accept. And if you do feel that something's badly off, then do seek some sort of medical attention, right? I'm not here to say, everything's just energy and don't go to the doctors ever. That would be very, very foolish. But a lot of what we are feeling is energy going through our bodies. And I know some of those sensations are worrisome. But in general, if you just give it a moment before you freak out, you'll find that it'll transit and it's not actually something bad. Anyways, much, much love to you all. I'll speak to you again next week with any luck. I might be on Great Barrier Island next Wednesday morning. Looks like that is happening this weekend. But we will see. We will see. Much love to you all. Bye for now.